remember that I replaced the 47 microfarad by what was supposed to be a 4.7, which is this tiny little capacitor here. Now I started looking for what would possibly cause the image to be compressed so that I couldn't expand it from top to bottom. And you could say I felt suspicious about the capacitor in the vertical oscillator. I wasn't happy with how the image was behaving. So I did a very simple trick, which was I took another capacitor, another electrolytic, and I simply bridged the capacitor over that little one by touching the leads to the solder points of the 4.7. And what do you know, the image expanded correctly. And I came to the conclusion that by replacing the original transistor, which was a 2SB51, by an S9012 PNP, that its characteristics are a little bit different. Yeah, so the new PNP transistor probably has slightly different characteristics. So I replaced the capacitor, which you see here, by a 33 microfarad. How do I come to that value? Well, I experimentally tried out several capacitors and I came to the conclusion that somewhere around 33 microfarad was the sweet spot for the oscillator. So that's what I did. I took out the 4.7 and I replaced it by a 33 microfarad. And the image is now completely normal. Now, there is one other thing that I think I should show you. If you take a look at the schematic, which is here, let me take a pointer and I'll show it to you. Now, on the schematic, if you look at the oscillator transistor here, you'll notice that the voltages are marked like 5.5 at the collector, 1.6 at the base, and you could say that the emitter is around the B plus voltage, which is 12.5 volts. Now, it turns out that when I make the TV work, which I'm going to do now to show you. Okay, hang on. Okay. So let me turn on the TV now. There you go. Alrighty, so you notice that the image is now completely expanded. Okay, so it covers top to bottom of the CRT. Now, if you look at the voltages around the vertical oscillator transistor, let me switch on my multimeter. Okay, so let's measure the voltage around the emitter first. Now the emitter should be somewhere around B plus, and the base should be at 1.6, and the collector should be at 5.5. Okay, so first the emitter voltage. Okay, so the emitter is over there. So there you go. We're measuring the emitter. 13.4 volts, let's say. Okay, now let's measure the base. There. 15.9 volts. Now let's measure the collector. 6.66 volts. Okay, so what I think is wrong on the schematic is the base voltage. So on the schematic is marked 1.6 volts, where actually if you look at the multimeter it is closer to 16 volts. Okay, so in my opinion the voltage mentioned on the schematic is wrong. So it's not 1.6, but it is 16 volts. Okay, so yes, well, that's an important detail to keep in mind. The other voltages are off a bit. I mean, if you look at the collector voltage, which I measure over there, so that's the collector, then it's not 5.5, it's closer to 6.5. Okay, and the emitter voltage is a little bit higher too. It's not 12.5, it's more like 13.3 volts. So the voltages are really a bit off from what they should be and what is marked on the schematic. So that is something you have to take into account if you're ever going to repair one of these TVs. Okay, so the voltages on the schematic are definitely not correct. Okay, I'm trying to align the picture, and as you can tell from the test image, we have a little bit of a picture symmetry problem. The circle is more egg-shaped than round, and as you can tell, the vertical linearity isn't too good, so the picture is extended at the top and compressed at the bottom. Now, my problem is that if I try to adjust the vertical linearity, I can compensate for the compression on one side and the extending on the other. I can up to a certain degree, but as you can see, the picture starts to roll over itself as I do, which is of course not a desired effect. So if I extend the linearity to say this, then the picture is still deformed a bit, especially at the bottom, but Basically, you could say the image is rather sharp. The focus needs a little bit of adjustment too, but aside from the egg shape of the test image and the slight out of focus, the image is actually quite sharp. If you look at the multi-burst, now I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I can see that the multi-burst, the lines of the multi-burst are still visible in this band, which is around 4 megahertz, I would think. It doesn't show, but okay, so this is rather high in the megahertz range, where and if I really tune the tuner as well as I can even see lines in this band here. Right now I can't really see lines, but there was a moment when I could see them there too. So the image, all in all, is actually quite sharp for this little TV. It's not super bright, but for a 50-year-old picture tube, the image is actually rather bright. I can... oh no, that's the contrast. Okay, hang on. Let's see. Oh, hang on. One moment. I'm working on a tight space here. Okay, here is the brightness. So as you can tell for yourselves, the picture can be turned up quite bright. So all in all, the picture tube is actually still quite good of quality. So I'm rather pleased with the quality of the picture tube. Now, my other problem is the sound. Now, first of all, there is sound. I mean, I'm injecting a 1 kilohertz sound signal into the radio frequency signal, and if I mistune the TV, well, that's typical, of course. Okay, let me do it in another way. Hang on. So if I mistune the TV, well, no. Of course, like I said, it's typical. When you want to demonstrate something, it never works out. But okay, believe me, there is sound at a certain level of misalignment. By that I mean that if the picture is gone, then there is sound. If there is no sound, the picture is perfect. So I will most probably need to I'll need to align the TV. Unfortunately, I have two practical problems. My oscilloscope gave up on me. I think one of the filter capacitors on its power supply blew up. with a nice puff of smoke. So I'll have to make a video on that as well, trying to repair my oscilloscope. And secondly, I still don't have a sweep generator. So aligning the TV will be somewhat of a pain. But okay, I can give it a shot, and what do I have to lose? Nothing. So I will try to align the TV, probably the next episode. So what I intend to do now is to of course try to improve the picture. At least I would like the picture to be round, at least the test image to be round and not egg-shaped as it is right now. I would also like to fix the issue with the sound, although like I said, that will probably also mean aligning the TV. Now, I'm not so sure that the service manual I have also has the alignment instructions, but I'll take a peek, and if I have, then I will. Well, without oscilloscope, because like I said, my oscilloscope probably blew a filter capacitor, and without the benefit of a sweep generator, this is about the best I can do to align the picture. I got the sound to work, cleaning out a few contacts and all that, and let me show you. So as you can hear, the sound works as well. Now, well, like I said, I did the best I could with all the well, with the help of the potentiometers and adjusting the focusing magnets on the neck of the tube. This is about as good as it gets. Now, the service manual does mention some alignment instructions, and in fact I haven't tried them out as yet, but they do say that the individual oscillator slugs are accessible through a hole in the front of the tuner. Now, I guess they are talking about that square hole you see over there. Yeah, and if I look inside of the hole, I can see tiny screws that supposedly can be turned. I don't know if you can see the screws, but I can. They are hidden deep down there in that squarish hole behind the knob. Now, they say adjust individual slug for best picture and sound on each active channel. If any channel shows insufficient range, adjust overall oscillator adjustment A201 and recheck all channels. Now, I haven't tried it as yet because it turns out that, okay, there's a little bit of noise, as you can tell for yourselves, but it's acceptable, let's say. Now, they also mention much more extensive alignment instructions, but like I said, without a working scope and a sweep generator, I'm afraid I'll have to forego these alignments for now. They do mention even more precise alignment instructions, as you can tell for yourselves. Now, there is one alignment that I might try, and that is, or rather two alignments, and that is the one to align the AGC, the automatic gain control, and one to align the sound. Now I do have a signal generator, and I do have a VTVM as well, or rather an analog meter. I have those, so I technically could try to do these alignments if I were certain that it would do any good. Now, well, I've never done such an extensive alignment of a TV set before, so I might just try to give it a go, just to see how difficult or how easy it is. Now, aside from a minor symmetry error, where you can see that unfortunately the circle is still a bit lopsided to the top of the screen, the image is surprisingly sharp, as you can tell for yourselves. It's a really pure image. No snow, no bleeding. The focusing is reasonably good. Not perfect either, I would say, but not too bad as well. And the image is really sharp. I mean, I can see the burst frequency lines up to here, up to this band. I'm not sure you can see it, but I can. Let me see if I can make a close-up. There. And I'm certain you can see very fine lines here. I can see them at least. So the image is incredibly sharp on this TV. I'm really astonished. So if I had the necessary equipment to align it properly, I think I could make a beautiful picture appear on the screen. As it is reasonable. It is sharp, but not extremely symmetrical, unfortunately. But I'm sure somewhere in the future I will have a sweep generator, and I hope by then I will also repair my oscilloscope. So, well, now that I got the picture working and the sound working, there are just two main things to do. One is to, of course, reassemble the whole thing and mount it back into its case. But before I can do that, I have to repair the hole they made into the case side to mount that silly little switch you see lying over there by the solder rolls. Now I've got a bit of a problem with that case, which is that they obviously made a cut into the case, as you can tell for yourselves, and it's really a quite nasty cut. So I really don't know how I'm going to repair that. Maybe I'll do it with epoxy, or perhaps I will find a piece of aluminum that I can cut to the exact shape of the original ventilation hole. Well, we'll see. Anyway, there is a bit of damage on top as well, and the paint is basically okay on all sides except for this hole. So yeah, I still have some work to do. what I would also like to do is to repair the flaking aquadag on the picture tube. But for that I'll need to find some carbon slip plate to be able to do that. But I'm willing to give it a try. So let's say I need to do three things. I need to repair the slip plate, I need to reassemble the whole chassis, and then I have to repair the casing. And when all that is done, then we can have a go at mounting it all back together again. I found in my stash a piece of aluminum which has the same thickness as the cabinet of the Sony, and which will allow me to cut a piece out of it which fits exactly inside this hole here and this hole here. And I will retool a little bit the opening which you see here to take out all the pieces, the little corners and the little edges that aren't straight. So I'll take a small file and file the little edges away to make the edge perfectly straight of these holes. And then I'm going to draw the exact shape on the aluminum like this, and then cut the aluminum. And when I have the piece of aluminum in the exact same shape as the hole it needs to plug, then I'll apply a tiny little drop of super glue around its edge and fit it exactly inside the hole which it needs to plug. When that is done, I'll see if I'll repaint it or not. Maybe I won't, maybe I will. But what I will do is on the back of the plate, once it covers the hole, I will put along the edge a bit of epoxy glue to reinforce it. Yeah, but on the inside, of course, where it's not visible. And when that is done, well, I'll think about either repainting the cabinet, so giving it a new layer of I would say dark gray metallic paint. I'm not sure, but I might. Or I'll just leave the aluminum as it is. And you know, like I said some months ago, or maybe a year or so ago, there are two trends in the restoration business. One is that you should repair or restore something to its exact original look, yeah, where you cannot see the difference between what was there and what is the new repair. Or there is the other faction which says that you can in fact restore something and show where the restoration is, you know, so that you can see the old and the new. I'll see how well I can restore these holes. If I can manage to restore them and bring back the shape of the cabinet sufficiently so that it looks like it must have originally looked, then I might just repaint the face of the cabinet which I repaired. If not, I'll leave the aluminum in place as it is, and that way people will see that repairs were made. Well, I'm of two minds. I don't know yet how or what I will do exactly, but what I do know is that I will proceed into cutting a piece out of the aluminum which fits exactly in the holes which you see here. While the weather still permits to work outside, I thought I would cut a fitting piece of aluminum to plug these holes. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to hold the aluminum plate on the inside of the hole like this, and I'm going to draw the profile of the hole to plug with a fine tipped felt pen, an alcohol felt pen, and then I'll draw an extra edge around the profile so as to be able to attach it to the sides of the cabinet eventually. Maybe not. I'll see how accurate I can cut with a grinding wheel. I bought myself recently some precision, high durability carbon fiber grinding wheels, so we'll see how accurately I can cut the aluminum piece. Now I'm going to cut the aluminum on a piece of high density foam, not wood, not metal or stone, but high density foam. Why? Well, because when the wheel starts to cut through the aluminum, I want it to keep on cutting and not to stop suddenly, which would give a jagged edge to the aluminum. So I thought high density foam would be ideal for that purpose. So let's get drawing and cutting. And there you go, the first piece of aluminum I cut. And aside from a tiny little bit here, which was rather difficult because it was a sort of a corner I had to cut into the plate, well, except for that tiny little overshoot here, the plate is really perfect. It fits right into the hole and it's flush with the rest of the metal. So the only thing I need to do now is to cut the edges, or rather to clean the edges, so that there is no metal sticking out anymore, and that it is rough enough on the inside for the glue to get a grip on the metal. So what I'm going to do now is clean the edges, clean the inside of the metal a little bit, and then apply some glue to stick the plate to the cabinet. But okay, before I'm going to do that, I still need to cut another piece which will fit into this hole, and that will be a little bit more complicated because there are quite a few more corners to cut. So let's get cracking. I drew a template on the aluminum which I'm going to try to cut out. Believe it or not, the hardest thing to cut will be one of those slits, as you see in the other intact holes. So I am quite certain I will not be able to copy one of those slits exactly, but I think I can emulate it with some careful grinding. Well, there is the result of all my grinding and cutting. Okay, granted, it's not exactly, it doesn't look exactly like the original openings in the cabinet, but well, the main thing is that I want to repair the largest part of the damage, and that's it. I have no intention of trying to bring it to its completely original state, which is, by the way, nigh impossible. But I'm rather pleased with the result. Now the only thing I need to do is to grind off a little bit this edge here to make it flush with the original cabinet, and then we can move on and glue it, or glue the two parts to the cabinet. And then I might decide to spray paint the cabinet again. I found a color which is rather close to what this color is, a kind of very dark, dull gray. The one I found is perhaps a shade darker, but it's still a kind of dark gray. And anyway, I don't think I can find the exact same type of gray Sony used on this cabinet. So yeah, well, let's just get on with it.